Thank you, gentleman. Yields back. I'd like to recognize the gentlelady from Michigan, Ms. Scholten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to our witnesses for taking the time to be here today and your informative testimony. As the vice-ranking member on the Coast Guard subcommittee, I was fortunate enough in August to join a congressional delegation to Panama with the Coast Guard to learn more about the Coast Guard's key law enforcement missions. As you know, the Coast Guard is uniquely positioned to perform drug, migrant, and IUU interdictions. Intercepting illicit drug shipments is an essential part of combating addiction and maintaining public health and national security. As your testimony here today has shown, we know you share my concern over a potential government shutdown in just 3 days and what that would mean to our enforcement efforts. Rear Admiral Burdian, we have previously heard how a shutdown would harm our service members, the heart of the Coast Guard. But how would a government shutdown impact the Coast Guard's key operations, particularly drug, migrant, and IUU interdictions?
Congressman, first, thank you for taking time to visit with the Coast Guard and understand our mission space. We would continue to conduct life-saving missions. We would continue to keep assets on patrol. There would be certain operations that we would not conduct during a shutdown, but I will say the most profound impact is to our people, to the individuals conducting that critical work. I was chief of response in Seattle during the last government shutdown, and my spouse at the time was in command of a ship that was deployed to the South Pacific. And so kind of keeping your head in the game is a real challenge when you have young people who don't know how they're going to put food on their table and make ends meet. So if we look at the range of missions the Coast Guard conducts and the relative risk in those mission spaces, we often operate very close to the edge of the operating envelope of the assets that we crew. What I want as a leader and an operator is for our crews to be able to focus on risk and the mission at hand.
Thank you. And you may well be aware, in April, Representative Gonzalez-Colon and I reintroduced H.R. 2693, the Bipartisan Pay Our Coast Guard Parity Act of 2023. This bill would ensure that if service members in other branches of the military are paid, even in a government shutdown, so will our Coast Guard members. They deserve nothing less. This bill is essential to ensure that Coasties may continue to perform these critical law enforcement missions without fear of losing their homes, feeding their families, or risking their livelihoods. Can you talk a little bit more in depth, just specifically about the impact of a shutdown, fearing where the income may be coming from, has on retention and recruitment and the overall morale of our Coasties?
Yes, ma'am. I think what we don't want is to be at our crew members' dinner tables. When crew members, are arguing at dinner tables about finances because they're not receiving their paycheck as Coast Guardsmen, and then are going out to conduct dangerous missions. We say that service is a sacrifice, and it's true, but it's not just a service member who sacrifices. I can tell you that my children have missed with either parent multiple holidays, birthdays, significant events. It is a worthwhile trade-off, but the more junior the person, the more challenging it is, given the fact that most Coast Guard personnel they don't live in a place that's co-located with a large military base. So we're on the economy for housing, and it's having to have discussions with landlords and creditors. It is demoralizing. It's difficult, again, to keep your head in the game.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your sacrifice. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I'd like to recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want